calendar. First of all, the chairs are set up like this because there's another activity at 11:30 right after here, so we do have to clear out. And we are recording this. There were a number of people that had conflicts that wanted to come, and working with the Academic Computing Center and our colleague Robert, we are recording this, and it will be posted to the ORSS website shortly after the presentation. So if you know people that are interested, they can follow up. We're going to get started in a minute, and let me first direct you to the Office of Research Support Services website. This is an office that was created just this fall when I started working here at UIC to run this office. I actually worked at UIC 10 years ago for 10 years and came back to help get this office started. The purpose of this office is to work with CUPPA research centers, academic units, faculty, to help support developing a more robust pipeline of sponsored research. And we do that through a number of services. We work with you to help you identify and find opportunities, and these are typically large scale, mostly government, in the dollar amounts of probably over $100,000 or $200,000, or proposals and opportunities that will lead to that. We help facilitate teams. A lot of times, as we all know, working here, we can operate in silos. So we help facilitate teams within the college to apply for these opportunities. We support your submission in any way that is necessary. And we work with you to also help you develop a stronger externally facing platform so that you can be recognized as thought leaders in your field. And this is an essential component if you are pursuing sponsored research. And we help you, if you're running research centers, you're working in research centers, look at issues of long-term financial sustainability. What does it really take to sustain these research platforms over time? So my contact information is here. You can go to the website to learn more. And if you have colleagues, as I said, you can direct them to this website to view this workshop. I am thrilled to have Francesca Gaiva. Francesca is the Associate Director of CUPPA and the university's Institute for Research on Race and Public Policy. She is one of the leading people on campus, a sponsored research expert, and could probably do this presentation without any slides. She's worked hard over the years to build a comprehensive workshop to help faculty and researchers as you are thinking about sponsored research opportunities. This has the A to Z, the soup to nuts, the everything you need to know. It's normally a 2 to 3 hour workshop. So she's going to, in her engaging style, give us as much information as she can in this 1 hour period. This is the first time we've done any workshops, so we're kind of testing out to see what people are interested in. So as you listen to the presentation and as you're thinking about your own work, let us know what else might be of interest to you so that we can plan some other workshops. I'm not going to take any more time. I'm going to turn it directly over to Francesca. And she has a mic on. We have a mic, which I guess I should have been using for right now. Sorry about that. But we have a mic for questions, not because we can't hear you, but because we are presenting this and we are recording it for others. So with that said, Francesca, I'm turning it over to you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Welcome, everybody. As Lori said, my name is Francesca Gaiva. I work upstairs in IRPP, the Institute of Research on Race and Public Policy. I've been there for 3 years. I've been at the university for 12 years, actually 13, oh my God. And my previous job was a pre-award specialist. So for 8 years, I helped faculty members and some graduate students apply and secure funding for their research. And our success rate was very high, over 35%, which in the grant world, you know, if you get one proposal accepted out of 3, that's very good. So as Lori said, this presentation usually runs a little longer. I scheduled it for an hour and a half with some questions. So I'm going to run through it fairly quickly, and I'm going to slow down at the parts where things get a little complicated, where we talk about concepts like indirect cost and tuition remission and things that usually people have a hard time wrapping their brain around, not because any of us are not very intelligent people, but because they're so counterintuitive. Most of the things related to grant budgets are not intuitive, so I'm going to slow down there. The first part is more about like tips that I've accumulated over 8 years of helping faculty members, things that I've noticed, mistakes that people make. And if you are not yet a faculty member, a graduate student, or a postdoc and will be graduating, this information, even though it pertains to UIC, is pretty standard for university research. So whenever you find yourself at another university starting your career, this information will apply as well. So welcome. This is the agenda. Oopsie. And I put Lori Alpern's presentation at the end because I thought she was going to speak at the end, but she's already gone, so we're good. So you think you need funding. So in this section, we'll talk about what is external funding, what questions you should ask yourself and others, and what types of funding exist. And by the way, I saw that this presentation is printed in your binder, which is great, but sometimes the slides are like very tiny. So if you need to, just email me at the end of this or email Lori. We can provide this presentation to you so you can print it in larger slides. So what do we mean by external funding? When your dean or department head says you need to get some grants, you need to get some external funding. These are any form of grants, fellowships, and forms of support that are not from UIC that allow you the chance to carry out your research, and they usually give you time off to do the research, money, or both. And the difference is important. Now, the most important thing to begin with is to talk to your department head or chair, mentors, peers, and colleagues about the expectations for funding. If you're a faculty member in philosophy, there might be very low expectation that you'll go out and find a grant for your research. If you are doing health-related research, there's a very high expectation. In fact, sometimes tenure depends on your getting an NIH grant. So the expectations can be very wide. You don't want to, come up for tenure or midterm review and find out you were supposed to get grants and you didn't know. This thing I'm going to say over and over, you need to find support. I do not expect faculty members, graduate students, postdocs to know the minute details of how to put together a grant proposal. Sometimes the budgets have such detailed information, it's very hard for somebody who hasn't done it on a regular basis to know and to keep updated with all the changes. So you need to find somebody to help you. Your business manager in your department, the research specialist in a research institute like mine or Lori's, so find help. Other things you should think about is timing. Like, is it a good time for you to be applying for a fellowship to teach your discipline in Korea for a year, where this is the year that you're supposed to put together your tenure papers? Just the timing of it is very important. Like, don't plan to be gone or to be away from campus at a time when you're very much needed here. Some colleges also have restrictions on how long you can be gone. So if you just had a sabbatical and you've also applied for a grant that releases you from teaching, your college might not be happy with that, and they might want you to be teaching, right after your sabbatical. So consider that. Okay, so these are the type of support that are available, and you need to decide before you apply for a grant, what do you need? And usually when people come to me and they say, I have an idea for a research project, and they think it's quite well fleshed out, but then when we sit down and I say, well, so what do you need? If you can't articulate what kind of things you need from this grant, then probably the proposal hasn't been fleshed out completely. Do you need time off? Do you need a research assistant? Do you need travel to libraries? Do you need access to a database? So actually putting together a budget is a good way to check whether you've got all your ducks lined up in your mind about your project. So salary replacement is also known as course buyout. When people say, I want to buy out a couple of classes, it means that they want a grant that will pay them their salary so the college doesn't have to pay that salary, and then you're released from teaching. If your teaching load is 2-2, for example, you might want a grant that will pay for 2 courses, meaning that your salary is drawn from the grant and you do not have to teach those 2 classes. Sometimes people get a grant that will release them for the entire year from teaching, or maybe you want to continue teaching. Your college might require you to teach regularly, but you can drop from 2 courses to 1 course, and the other time you devote to your grant. Now, summer salary is a very different beast, especially if you're on a 9-month salary. That means that the 3 months of summer are yours to do what you want. In this case, what you can do from a grant is get salary from a grant that actually increases your annual salary. And if I'm seeing some puzzled looks, so if at any point like something that I say doesn't make sense, please let me know. If you're on a 12-month contract, then your summer is already taken up by UIC, so you need to buy out your time. But these are 2 different things. One is buying your time out from teaching, and one is getting summer salary. Summer salary pays you for work that you do in summer on the grant. Another thing that exists, but not in every field, is sabbatical supplement. So a lot of universities have a sabbatical program where they pay you 2/3 of your salary. And if you feel that that's not enough to live on, like most of us don't like a pay cut, there are grants that do sabbatical supplement. So you've already been approved for sabbatical, you apply, they will pay, they will max out your salary. A residential fellowship is another great way to fund your research, but there's a caveat. You need to go and be in residence at another university. So the question there is, are you able to leave Chicago? Is your research here? Are you collecting data in the city? Or are you at the point where you've collected all your data and you could be moving to a different city, a different state, and do your research there? Maybe Stanford University would love to have you in residence for 2 semesters, but look at your family, look at your situation. Are you able to up and leave for a semester or 2? And same thing with a Fulbright fellowship. You know, are you interested in collecting data and maybe teaching abroad for a year? Is that something that your life allows you to do? A lot of people come to me asking for travel money. Travel is rarely part of a grant on its own. You are very much able to add travel to a grant budget that is a larger project. So if you are in the business of looking for travel money, remember that travel grants are usually internal to universities. There are very few grants out there. The exception here is historical research. There are some travel grants that allow people to travel to archives and collections across the nation. Project expenses are, as opposed to salary, are grants that only pay for your what is called field expenses, so your travel to collect your data, paying participants, the travel expenses themselves, transcribing equipment and things like that, but they will not give you salary. An example of this is NSF. The National Science Foundation believes that during the 9 months of the year, the salary that you're paid by the university is actually also paying you to do research. They believe that is part of your job to do research, so they will not release you from teaching by giving you salary. They will give you some summer salary if you are on a 9-month contract. Also, there's a few publication grants out there. There's fewer and fewer. There used to be more. Publication grants actually not only give you time off to write, to finish your manuscript, but also give a subsidy to the publishing house, which makes it more interesting for a publishing house to actually give you a contract. Again, it depends. I've seen them, but it very much depends on the field. Training, sometimes people come to me and say, I need to do this research, but I don't know Spanish, for example. Will the grant pay for me to take classes? It very much depends. The answer usually is no. Again, places like National Science Foundation expect you to be qualified to do this research, so usually putting in a request for you to train in that field shows that you're not qualified to do the research. But there are grants, for example, I've seen in NIH, National Institutes of Health, there are grants that will train you to learn a new methodology. So you've been a quantitative researcher all your life, excuse me, and there are, you're interested in mid-career to switch or add to new methodological expertise. There are grants that will allow you to do that. As I mentioned, you need to decide where you want to be. Do you need to be in Chicago in the US, or can you travel? And also remember that some fellowships and grants can be paid to you as an individual. And so people usually ask, like, what is better? Like, should I take the check myself as an individual, or should I have it come through UIC and then be paid to me? Of course, the university wants you to have it come through UIC because it shows up on the records and it increases our rankings for grant funding. Sometimes that's not the best thing for you. UIC, as you all know, can be very bureaucratic in spending money. So even if it is a grant that you applied for, once it comes here, there's on top of the foundation restrictions, there are federal and state restrictions on how to spend the money. That said, taking the money as an individual may increase your annual income, and then you would have to work with a tax advisor to figure out how to remove it from your taxable income. So it's tricky.
If you were to do that and get a grant as an individual, does UIC and the support systems, will they help you still or not?
The question, I'm repeating for the camera. The question is, if you take it as an individual, will UIC help you? The answer is no, because there wouldn't be any record of it in the system, and the check would come to you to your home address, and you would deposit it in your checking account. So then the burden is on you to make sure that you don't get taxed on that money, because most of it, I assume, would be travel expenses or things that, you know, it's not just income. So it's complicated.
Not to belabor the point, but there are also a lot of conflict of interest policies that you have in forms,
Yeah.
and approvals.
Okay, so finding funding is the beginning of finding grants. So again, find somebody that can help you find funding. Lori would be a great person in CUPPA to work with. Oops. Databases, my favorite database to look for funding is COS, Community of Science. All databases have pretty much the same features. You search by keywords. One thing you want to do is set up alerts. I have alerts set up, so I get weekly emails from the database, and if anything new in my field comes up, I don't have to search again. They just automatically email me. You can also track specific opportunities, meaning that if there's a grant that you really like, but the deadline just passed, you can set up a tracking system so that when the new deadline shows up, you will get notified. These are great tools because there's no way you can remember every 2 months to go on the database and do it. So set it up. It's very easy and very doable. Actually, I teach a course on, I teach a workshop on how to do funding searches, which is something, Lori, if there's need, we could do again.
We're going to poll you.
Other funding databases, grants.gov is not very good. It's from the federal government. There's a Grants Resource Center. I put here our password. And then the OVCR office, Office of Research Services, has a page called Finding Funding. So make sure that to check that out as well. Okay, so the most important tip in finding funding is start early. The application cycle is 9 months, which means between the time you apply, when you click submit, and you get an answer, usually it's 9 months. Sometimes I'm still waiting on some NIJ grants that have been out there for 12 months. And every day we're like, wow, did we get it or not, you know? So that means that if it takes you 2 months to write a good application, then we're talking about a year. So don't wait until the last moment, obviously, to start looking. And then the sad part, but true, is that most applications are funded on the second or third submission. And that means that if you have a goal like tenure or graduation or finishing this postdoctoral project that you're working on, you need to get going like right now. So what you do is you do a funding search. You find maybe 12 things that look promising. You narrow it down usually to 2 or 3, which is a manageable number. You make a timeline, which ones are due first. In general, you want to start with smaller applications and easier applications that are 3 to 5 pages, and then once you've written that, you build on it to create more complex applications. NSF can be 15-page single-spaced. NIH can be, actually they've shortened right now, but they're also a long application. Some NIJ, National Institute of Justice, they can take 30 pages of single-spaced text. So there they expect a lot. They expect your project to be completely thought out, methodology-wise, literature review and everything. So it's easier to start out with smaller ones and build into bigger ones. And also you want to recycle them. When you get feedback from foundations, you got rejected, which is normal. Everybody goes through this. You just incorporate the feedback and make it into a better application. You will be surprised how many times we submitted something, we loved it, we were happy. A year later, it has changed over time. We've changed it for new applications, and then by the time we go back and read the original application, we're like, oh my God, we submitted this? Like, even if it sounds like really good, if it's your first time writing this up, it's gonna need a little bit more work and complexity. Okay, so tips on applying for grants. So now we're ready. We found one funding source that we are ready to go for. So what happens? Here we're talking, I'm gonna go through what happens at UIC, which offices need to give you the okay to apply. You can't just up and apply on your own. And then I'm gonna talk about some of the concepts that are more arcane. Again, now that you're ready, find support. Find support, find support. That's my most important tip. It's not like I'm guaranteeing my own job by saying this, also, and Lori's, but also I really do not recommend that you as a faculty member spend any hours reading 250-page guidelines on how to submit a grants.gov application. Most of that doesn't even apply to you. It's just a waste of your time. Somebody else, that's somebody else's job. So you should familiarize yourself with the application, especially online applications sometimes are different than the guidelines. So we have some federal agencies that don't really do their job very well. So their guidelines still refer to a paper application, but they've gone electronic, and sometimes the two don't mesh. So it says here that you have to write a one-page abstract, then you get into the actual online site, and it's only one paragraph. So you've written this beautiful one page, and now it doesn't fit into the box that you have to cut and paste into. So I always suggest create a login, get into the system, download the application, print it out, look at it for what it really is. Don't just rely on the guidelines to tell you what you're gonna find. Now a lot of people ask me, like, how do you actually write the application? And that's And that's proposal development, like what goes into the abstract, what goes into the narrative, what goes into the methodology. That's very discipline specific, so I don't want to give you guidelines that are too generic and not specific enough. But there is one site that I love. It's called Grant Proposals or Give Me the Money, and it's so good that I actually had it printed out and put in your binder. It's quite comprehensive, and it tells you in a fairly generic form, but fairly comprehensive, what goes into each section of a grant proposal. UIC also has a development proposal site. I put it here. I would say, ask colleagues for copies of successful proposals. So oftentimes what happens is, in your discipline, people have already applied for this. If you know somebody who did, your mentor, your advisor, your department head, ask them for a copy. See what language is needed and required. I find that especially for first-time writers of grants, people are very tentative. They say things like, well, this project would address, and if funded, this project would increase, and it's, maybe what you want is to develop more a confident style, and seeing somebody else has already done it. You can say, this project will address this project will reach to this audience. And another thing that I notice first-time writers do is being tentative in the budget. So when we talk about a budget justification, it's not, the word justification is misleading. People think that they need to justify, like, why did they choose to pay $20 per interviewee. And so I see things like, $20 is a small amount of money to pay for somebody who's traveled far to come to the interview site. That's too dramatic. Like, you just say, we've budgeted $20 per interviewee as an incentive, full stop, move on. It's a justification, but it's not like, you see what I mean? It's a narrative. It's not, it's not you have to justify your life. Lori, you have a question?
I wanted to say on the proposal writing, the most important instruction that I give is follow the instructions. And as you read the request for proposal, you'll see anywhere from, depending on the proposal, it could be up to 100 sub-questions in the narrative.
Yeah.
Make sure you answer every single question directly and point that out. This is not a proposal writing workshop per se, but following the instructions is so key, and I believe that's what you're listening to. I've done a lot of reviewing for federal agencies of proposals, and reviewers sit there and have to note and score whether you